the MTEP sort of application process sits within the NICE Health Technology Assessment, or it is a route through NICE Technology Assessments. It is relatively quick compared to a single technology appraisal, or indeed multiple technology appraisals, which are the two other routes that you can go through through NICE. But the MTEP is specifically focused on medical devices, which is why we are sort of discussing it here. As I say, it's relatively quick, and the design of it is staggered. First, you have to sort of present clinical evidence through the process, and then afterwards you have to present economic evidence, and that is sort of the structure of it. Basically, if you're considering this, I would very much encourage you to sort of get your analysts or your health economists, such as ourselves, on board as soon as possible, because that process is quite quick. And from the word go, you want us to be hitting the ground running in order to meet a rather tight deadline. And so before as we're sort of just starting off that process, just have those 5 bullet points there very much lined up. You know, the decision problem needs to be characterized. You need to know your device. You need to know the standard care probably that you're trying to replace, or you're arguing for replacement, or the alternative. You need to know exactly where the value of your device lies. You need to have your evidence all lined up, particularly the clinical evidence, because that comes first, at least in the requirement submission process, and that all needs to be collected and readily available. If there's any new evidence that's going to be generated, that's marvelous, but again, it needs to be quite short term in terms of when you're going to get that data in order for use in the MTEP process. And in the same way that you sort of identifying the sort of key value drivers of your device or technology, you need to really establish what the costs and the benefits are going to be in that whole picture there.
That's right. Yeah. At an early stage, you're absolutely right, Nick. And what Nick and I are alluding to here actually is we feel very important, actually, hence our little exclamation mark in the top right there. It's really because time and time again, what we see, not every time, of course, but it is completely understandable because this is all fairly new territory for medtech companies, but it is a common pitfall to be quite a long way down the line of contacting regional and perhaps even national, perhaps even international stakeholders who could grant reimbursement and uptake, and recommend uptake rather. And they have got down that line, but they haven't yet ticked a number of boxes. So for example, it's quite conventional for key value drivers to be hypothesized and acted upon at that late stage. By which time, of course, and this speaks to the next point I was going to make actually, which is by which time it's actually rather difficult to prospectively collect the adequate data to support that, to make that case in an evidence-based, robust fashion. To that point, it's critical to, as soon as possible, identify exactly what evidence you perhaps as a medtech device developer, what evidence you currently have to support your defined decision problem and value story, what the data gaps are, and how you're going to fill those gaps, and why as well. And we can't stress enough how important it is to start early in that endeavor. Absolutely should pay off in spades. The trouble is, for example, with the MTEP project process, if you enter that process and you haven't quite sorted those things out, and also perhaps you're not quite, you don't have much of a preliminary idea of what your likely cost impact or your comparative benefit is, your profile in that respect, you might already be in a position which one cannot back out of being assessed, and a recommendation which may not be favorable being cast on the basis of an evidence submission which has inadequate evidence and is actually producing or providing a cost or benefit claim which ultimately in itself is not doesn't put the company in a very good light. To be clear, getting one's ducks in a row, getting them in order at an early stage with respect to these matters is imperative, and I suppose that's actually the main thing actually in this whole webinar I'd like to emphasize. But